Hello, am I late for this meeting? Hi,
Hey,
Sue.
how are you?
Oh, there we go. Claudia's just
Claudia?
in now. We were waiting. We hadn't started yet.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, you're all set, Patrick.
All right, very good. Welcome, everyone. It is 7:05. We'll call this meeting to order, May 13th, 2021, the Little Compton Housing Trust. By way of roll call, Isabel Mattia, present. Susan Boddington,
Present.
Andrew Moore,
Here.
Claudia McNeil.
Here.
The first item on the agenda this evening is approval of minutes from last month's meeting, that being March 17th. I beg your pardon? April 15th. I'm looking at these minutes that I had sent out and I mistakenly had labeled them as March, and I beg your pardon for that. Other than the date, were there any issues with any of those minutes from the April 15th meeting?
No.
Is there a motion to accept those minutes as written?
I'll
With
make a
the-
motion to accept them.
With the correction of the date?
Yes, with the correction of the date.
Motion made by Susan Boddington. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Claudia McNeil, second.
I
All
beat
those
you.
in, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous by consent. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report, for which we'll turn to Andrew if you have any updates on that.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. I did not complete my duties for the meeting today. So I don't have an update on that.
So by way of comparison, when referencing the minutes from last month, our balance at the end of March was $125,385.90. That was based upon accrued permit fees from the month of March in the order of $1,964.40. So I would anticipate that if March permit fees were 1,900 and change, that it may well be reasonable to assume that April's permit fees would be on par with that. And my expectation would be that the balance would be somewhere in the range of $130,000, perhaps, maybe just shy of that. So we'll have to get in touch with the treasurer's office and get a balance on that. I will see what I can do on that, and I'll send that information out as soon as I have it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Third item tonight is an update on the Housing Works Rhode Island contract and interview process in which we're in the midst here. Is there anyone who has any updates or information on that?
I was interviewed and it was fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was also interviewed, and it was a good discussion. I mean, I've known Annette for a long time, so it was nice to catch up with her, but also, I think it prompted a lot of thoughts about our town and what's going on in our town and what the difficulties are in trying to address affordable housing issues. It was a good conversation.
Yeah. One of the things that came up in my interview was questioning why the town council only gave us 1,000 rather than the usual 6,000, and maybe changing the giving back, like if we are given $1,000 from the town and we don't use it, does it get rolled back into the town budget?
Yeah, that has typically been the case.
Right.
On an annual.
And wondering if there's a way to change that so we can keep it instead of sending it back.
Andrew, I think we had briefly discussed this at last month's meeting, that the distinction between fee-based versus appropriation funds.
Yeah, the appropriation doesn't roll over. You know, it's really an authorization to spend that amount of money from the levy, you know, next year. And if we don't use it, then, you know, we'll have to request it again the next year. So, yeah, it's not how how it's set up to work that way.
Right, yeah. Yeah, better if we could keep it and let it accrue.
Yeah, but it's just not the way that the state allows us to do our budgeting. So,
Oh, it's a state thing, it's not a town thing?
well, I mean, it's partially our charter and also the state charter and allowing us to do the budgeting a certain way. You know, it's like this with every single department. You know, say the police department has a budget of, you know, $1 million this year and they don't use it all. It's not like they get that money again, like more money next year, you know. So you know, you gotta request it every year. So whether or not you use it.
Just for clarification, Claudia, the $1,000 is meant for your day-to-day operations. If you had a mailing and you needed postage or you needed to buy stationery or envelopes, that it's meant for that type of need that the board would have.
Oh, okay. So it's not meant to be added to any funds we have to buy property or land?
That's
Land
not
or-
its intention. That's what the building permit fees that you're generating, all of the monies that you talk about with the treasurer's report, that's what that's meant for.
All right, but we don't have to give that back.
No.
No, okay.
Not yet.
Good one, Patrick.
Is there any more discussion relative to Housing Works Rhode Island interviews? I guess I had heard from someone that a couple of the candidates were inaccessible at some point in time, and I don't know how that has played out, or if there were substitutes that were suggested, or if all the interviews are in fact complete. Does anyone have any idea about that?
No.
From what I heard with they were having trouble getting in touch with the contractor due to an illness. I think it was Tom Markins, but I think they finally got a hold of him and scheduled the interview. So I think they're on schedule to get everyone in.
That's
I think
great.
also two of the interviewees declined. And I think that was Sue Sisson and who was the other one who declined?
Tights.
Tights.
Yeah.
So they interviewed Marjorie O'Toole in replacement for one of them. And then the other one, I don't know if there was a replacement, but I think if they haven't finished the interviews, they'll be finished very soon. So that part of the process is nearly over if it's not already over. And then they're going to move into the town survey portion next, which I think we all can have input for, but we should start thinking about planning out the mailer, because I think we talked about having a mailer be a part of the survey process. So that's something to think about for maybe next month.
Okay, yeah, that's good advice. That's a good idea.
And I think they are going to have us review the survey and the survey questions, but it's really important that we stay on top of that, because it's a very sensitive issue, and you need to make sure that, you know, the way questions are asked and what's asked and whatnot is something everybody's comfortable with.
All right, very good.
Isabel, do you know if Marjorie O'Toole was meant to replace Sue Sisson? Because I had suggested that if there was a replacement needed, if they would ask Sue Chase, because she's very in touch with the people who go to the pantry, the food pantry on weekends and stuff. She really has, she's really in touch with people who need affordable housing. So I
Um,
hope
I
that
don't know
she's
the answer.
still,
I have a fussy customer here. I don't know the answer to that question, but I can certainly, I could email them with that suggestion.
okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 4 this evening, was the discussion of any potential properties that might be available, or anyone had an idea on for candidates for affordable housing.
I went to go visit 9 Crandall Road yesterday. And it's pretty cool. How would I look at what the shape of the lot is and what's the yardage or footage or whatever you call it?
Yeah, so I had sent out sort of a package that I had received from the realtor. This is at least a month ago, I guess. I think it was prior to last month's meeting, but the long and the short of it is, when I recently looked it up last week, it was under agreement. So I think that 9 Crandall Road is no longer available as a property, unless something were to fall through in that pending agreement.
Oh, that's too bad.
So yeah, it's about 1 3/4 acres, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. No, I beg your pardon, just about 1 acre. Just about 1 acre. But yeah, so it's swing and a miss on that, I guess. And,
All right,
and
well,
I think that's, again, one of the biggest challenges in trying to locate, identify, and acquire property, especially in this market. It moves so quickly. And
right.
frankly, I don't think that we as a body possess the financial or organizational wherewithal to make it happen in the time frame in which it really needs to,
Right.
I'm thinking that we really need to, and maybe we can put it on the agenda for a future meeting, is think about a process whereby, theoretical lot that we see that we think that would, we'd be interested in, and how do we proceed? What are the things we need to know? What is, and it relates to the next article about the budget and whatnot. What are the requirements for us in terms of getting approval to, make an offer on a property, to sign a purchase and sales with the property, there are a whole lot of issues that, I'm fairly new to this committee, so I'm not aware of if that's been established in the past, but I think if we can work through some of the issues of what's required to purchase a property, any hypothetical property. And to me, it would actually also, and this relates to the survey and whatnot, once we get survey information back and whatnot, have some consensus around what it is that we would like to see built. And, there's so many questions out there that need to be answered before we can move forward to develop something. And I think we can make a lot of progress on maybe just kind of I'm a planner at heart. So putting together a bit of a plan of how we would proceed with a lot. And then we'd be more prepared to move quickly into making a decision of, yes, this is something that the town should be interested in or not. And this is what might be built there, et cetera.
It's a good point. Patrick, is there anything like that? Does that exist already?
Well, I guess I completely agree with your point, Susan. I do think, however, that there's so many variables when one considers what's to be built and the design of what would be built and whom it might accommodate. I guess I don't think about it in terms of as long-term as that, only insofar as the town acquiring property, which would in perpetuity be held as affordable housing. And so I just think in terms of that first step, for the town to acquire a piece of property, which could be shown to be buildable through engineering tests. And once acquired, a plan could then be developed. And even if it were planned and developed by another group of people, whether appointed or elected or volunteers, who might be willing to contribute their ideas or talents, as the case might be, you know. But things move so quickly. And another thing I think about is, you know, we have discussed on many occasions the idea of trying to collaborate with the Agricultural Conservancy Trust. And the hang up there has been that their bylaws, their enabling legislation, do not enable them to have buildings effectively. Open space is what they have. But should the occasion arise wherein a piece of land, a large parcel of land, has a building or buildings on it, which are residential or could be residential, then there is a possibility that those buildings could be subdivided from that larger parcel. And I guess greater communication between the Ag Trust and the Affordable Housing Trust would be great in that regard. And I know I've spoken with Michael Steers, who is the head of the planning board, I believe. Carol, right? Mike Steers.
Yes, he's also on the Ag Trust.
Represents the planning board on the Ag Trust. So I would hope, and I would look forward to greater communication with the Ag Trust in the event that a piece of property were to come available that would fit that category, you know?
That would just be
That would
one
be a great
aspect.
opportunity.
Yeah,
Um,
that would just be one aspect of what Sue's talking about, though. I think Sue's idea is really good because it really encompasses a lot of the questions we have. And we're just kind of mired in going nowhere right now.
You're right.
You know?
But I guess, and I don't mean to, perhaps I misunderstood Susan's point, but if we wait until we have a finalized plan for a parcel of land, it will be gone.
Yes,
Right.
I actually was not talking about a plan for a specific parcel of land. I was talking about a more generalized plan that we're
Right.
looking for property that's of, you know, a particular size or particular kind of location, who's the population that we're talking about. And that would, you know, and that different sites might be better for, you know, seniors, or might be better for families or whatever. There are a lot of different needs. But I think if we have more conversation about, and as I say, this may come back with the survey. I think it's part of the point of the survey is to
Right.
establish that. But I think we could establish a few very broad parameters of kind of, you know, what we would be looking for. And I think it would help us get support for moving forward on some parcels as well.
I agree with that. And I think I would also add, like, we should have a better understanding of the process for like getting matching funds, or if there are like particular state programs for, like, for example, rehabilitating properties that have uninhabitable homes on them or something like that. Just like knowing what's out there in terms of like other funding opportunities from just pulling from our budget pool thing. I think I don't feel like I really have like a deep understanding of that process, which I think is like also going to inform the opportunities that we have.
Yeah.
You know, it may also be noteworthy that this public survey that we're intending to send out could reach a segment of the population who thus far has been unaware of what it is we're trying to do here. And so may be willing to work with us directly rather than, say, put a piece of property on the open market, might be willing to come to us directly so that we could negotiate in a more time, the time wouldn't be quite so sensitive, you know? So perhaps with this public mailing, we may reach people who could help us. Is there any further discussion on potential properties?
No.
Hearing none, we'll move to next item. Number 5 is discussion regarding the upcoming financial town meeting.
Patrick, you mind if I speak?
By all means, please do.
I'm going to turn my video off because I don't know if I'm still lagging or not. So I just asked, Isabel to put this on here because we had had discussions about it at our previous meetings, and specifically about the new language in the budget committee report. And, you know, I worked with the council to try and, try and make it so we had a little more access to the funds in the Housing Trust Fund. And this was the language in Article 3 here of the Budget Committee report that the council passed and that the Budget Committee recommended. That being said, there is always an opportunity at town meeting to change the language. And I just wanted to bring that up. And I didn't know if anyone had any ideas. I did give it some thought based on our prior conversations as a trust, and comments that Patrick had made before about that specific part about a prior approval from the town council. So I didn't know if we wanted to talk about it. Possibly, I did come up with a short amendment to it. If someone would want to, I just thought we could discuss it as a trust beforehand. Patrick, I don't know, has everyone seen Article 3 of the Budget Committee report?
I
Looking
have,
right now.
I don't have it in front of me at the moment. Andrew, would you be willing to, or would somebody be willing to read it for the record?
Yes. Yep. So can everyone hear me uninterrupted?
Yes.
Sure, I'm not. Okay. So Article 3, it's basically the same as it's been in the past. It says to authorize the Little Compton Housing Trust to receive monies, including state and federal grant monies, to receive or acquire any real or personal property by grant, gift, bequest, purchase, or devise, and to convey or lease real estate and or buildings so long as the conveyances shall be in keeping with the purpose of the housing trust and in conformance with Section 103 of the Little Compton Town Charter. Said real or personal property may be held in any manner so long that said acquisition and improvement are consistent with the mission of the trust. Furthermore, so this is the area that we've been talking about. Furthermore, to authorize the housing trust to expend with prior approval from the town council monies from the housing trust fund during fiscal year 2022 for the purposes of the trust, as provided in Section 2-9.2 of the town code and Section 710 of the Home Rule Charter. So I know that's a lot, and if you don't have it in front of you, it is a lot. My recommendation based on our prior conversations would be to strike the words with prior approval from the town council, and then add in an amount similar to other sections in here, like the ambulance reimbursement fund has that, the cell tower has that. So I was suggesting something like, furthermore, to authorize the housing trust to expend an amount not to exceed $50,000 or $100,000 from the housing trust fund during fiscal year 2022 for the purposes of the trust. So I don't know if you get what I'm saying there, but
What?
I'm suggesting eliminating that part that says with prior approval from the town council, and then adding in, an amount that we could spend next year from the trust. Additionally, another edit that I would add in there, at the end of that whole thing, it says, as provided in sections 2.9.2 of the town code. It does not make reference to the section 7-1, which is the, I'm sorry, bear with me for a second. it does not make reference to the money that we get from the permits that was passed by the town council in 2018. So I would suggest adding that in there as, you know, as something that, you know, we receive money from. So I don't know, you know, I just thought it would be a good edit to put in there just to make it clear that, you know, we are affected by the permits and the schedule of fees in that section. And that we receive money from that. Just so it's more consistent across everything. So it's a little long-winded, but if anyone has any thoughts, I'd appreciate hearing it.
So I'm wondering about, I mean, we were just talking about acquiring property and the process to do that, and how property comes and goes very quickly. And unless you can respond and make an offer on a property and have money behind it, you know, you can't acquire property.
Yeah.
It's all very expensive. So that doesn't seem to get us there. Now we have money in the trust. We have enough money in the trust to acquire property. But we don't have a process that would make it possible to do that. I don't have too much concern about going to the town council with a proposal to purchase something, because I think there really should be somewhat of a public process. But if every time we see a property we want, we have to go to a town meeting and say, you know, what does everybody think and whatever, you're never going to acquire a piece of property that way. It's just not possible.
Well, yeah, and that is the, you know, that's the way that's really the only way we can acquire property. Unfortunately, Carol, I saw you had your hand up.
Well, I was going to suggest that, yes, it's true. You are bound by section 103 of the charter. So you would have to go to town meeting for approval. But
what is section 103?
103, it's the one about purchasing property, holding property. And it's that is in the home rule charter. So if unless you have the charter in front of you, you won't see it.
Okay, but you can't acquire property without a town meeting. Is that
right.
essentially
Which in section 103, it says except for the Agricultural Conservancy Trust, because they're established by enabling legislation and have that right outside of section 103. But what I was going to say is the home rule charter is being reviewed right now. So if you want to make some sort of a change, then this is the time to speak to the Charter Review Commission and to speak to the council to say, we would like to see some form of an amendment made to the charter that would allow you to be able to purchase properties so long as you have sufficient funds to meet the mission and goals of the trust. I don't personally see a problem with you going through the process as Article 3 is written right now, because every board and commission has to do that. The only one that doesn't is the Ag Trust. Every other purchase or sale that happens has to be approved by the council before it can be paid. So unless you get some form of authorization through the charter or some other mechanism, I don't think you need to go to enabling legislation, but you know, some form of authorization to be able to function on your own outside of the town meeting for those approvals, you're always going to be limited by that.
So this language in the budget committee recommendation says that the housing trust can acquire real property, personal property, et cetera. But the reality is we can't.
Well, that's just one piece of what binds you. And in the charter itself, it says that you are bound by section 103.
Right.
So until that is changed, town meeting can say anything it wants to, but it's not going to be sufficient to override the charter.
Right. Okay. Now, and part of this is just getting clarification on this. Again, it goes back to my thoughts about us having sort of a process in place and know what we need to do to proceed if we really wanted to acquire a piece of property. This statement doesn't get us there, although this statement could allow us maybe to put a deposit on a property or something.
Mhm.
Um,
Nothing's
But-
outside of the realm of having you find a piece of property where you go to the owner and say, these are our limitations. We need to have a town meeting. Are you willing to do a purchase and sale contingent upon us getting authorization at a town meeting? That's the way right now you would have to function. Of course, you'd have to have somebody that's willing to sell you something first.
Right.
But I think with your survey and with the newsletter that you want to send out, you're going to encourage people to think a little bit outside the box. In the past, when they've been doing estate planning or writing their wills, they've been thinking about, saving something for open space or for conservation or something like that, where if you plant the seed in their heads that the town needs affordable housing, maybe they'll start thinking along the lines of doing that instead of, Ag Trust or SPA or any of those other groups.
And they can actually do both.
They
So
could.
There
they
are
could, yes.
plenty of opportunities which have, folks don't really know about. I think opportunity to kind of address both issues.
Mhm. And for that matter, I know from the days when we were writing the affordable housing chapter of the comprehensive plan, people don't realize that they could potentially put a home, not necessarily the residence, but a home in a 30-year bind where it could be affordable housing, or they can put it in a 99-year bind and still have it qualified for the town. So, I think the more information you can get out to the public about this, the more you might find people starting to respond.
Can we move to ask the home rule charter to change that?
Well, you can suggest it. They're going through a process now where they're inviting and will be inviting every board and commission to come before them. And what they're doing is asking for anything you think may need to be changed. So that would be something that I think as a group, you should come up with what you would like to suggest to them so that when the time comes that they invite you, you're prepared.
Yeah, good one. Okay.
So Andrew, back to the language in the budget article. I'm a little bit concerned about having a dollar limit placed in there rather than town council approval, because depending on the piece of property that you might be looking at, you might need to make a really substantial deposit on that property to just to hold it in order to get to a town meeting. And if we have put a dollar limit on it rather than the town council approval, then that would limit our ability to make a bid on some properties.
Yeah, no, I hear you. My main point is that, under section 2, and the authority and the bylaws that set up the housing trust, there's no reference to needing any approval by the town council to complete our duties and expend money from the
Yeah.
trust. So I'm just trying to be more consistent,
Well,
between.
Mainly, I think that's because of the fact that it's new to Little Compton. I mean, the trust has been around for a while, that's true. But the mentality of having an affordable housing trust and one that actually functions as a housing trust is new to us.
Yeah.
We only know boards and commissions of the normal town boards and ag trust, which is state enabling legislation. Those are our two opportunities.
Are there other boards and commissions that similarly need approval to use their funding for their mission? Or is that unique to us?
No, everyone needs to have, every department, every board, every commission that has funds, they're allowed to spend them, but those funds are supposed to go through a process. If it's more than $1,000, you're supposed to make sure with the finance director that you really do have more than $1,000 to expend. If it's larger values than that, you have to go through a sealed bid process. But every bill that gets paid, except for beach commission, because those are different, and for ag trust, they all go through the town council for them to give their final approval that those bills can be paid. So no, it's not unique.
All right, so clearly, as town residents, each and any of us is able to say what we like at the town meeting, thankfully. And I don't know if there's any motion that wants to be made relative to Andrew's suggestion tonight. I recognize what it is you're saying, Andrew, absolutely. I guess the 2 points that I interpreted was one, regarding prior approval. I agree with Susan about the limitation on the funding.
Mhm.
I don't think it would be a good idea to limit an amount of funding.
Yeah.
And then secondarily, you had talked about referencing that council motion in 2018, which enabled that building permit fee funding. I don't know that that's absolutely necessary, given that it's already in practice. I guess that could be taken away by the town, any town council in the future, right? And so perhaps that would be another item that we could discuss with the Charter Review Commission, that preserving that fee structure for affordable housing and perhaps even altering it, increasing it in some way, shape, or form. I know at the last meeting, Susan, you were talking about a proposed House bill statewide, which would provide funding based upon real estate transfers, if I'm not mistaken, I guess.
Yeah, it was an increase in the real estate transfer tax. I don't know that that's going anywhere this year, but it was some discussion about that.
So, yeah, I would look forward to hearing from the Charter Review Commission, and certainly I'd be willing to speak with anyone here tonight about planning what we might want to discuss with them. So perhaps on future next month's agenda or coming agendas, we could include this.
That would be good.
All right. Any further discussion on that matter? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 6, which is correspondence. And I've been told that we do not have any correspondence here this evening. Good,
Wait a
bad.
minute, Patrick,
Yes, Claudia.
should we go back to number 3? I mean, should we go back to Andrew's paragraph in the budget committee report and move that Andrew add those, his additions, his strikes and additions to that, to number 3 in the budget committee report?
Well, we can revisit that item. And if you would like to make a motion to that effect, you're free to do so.
Make a motion to revisiting?
Well, I
Is
guess what I'm
suggestion.
talking about you making a motion to have Andrew include the language. If you would like that to happen, you're free to make that motion.
Okay, I moved that we ask Andrew to add that, his language there.
Honestly, I'd rather not make the motion to do it myself. It was just, I brought it up because, we had talked about it at other meetings. And I feel a little uncomfortable even bringing it up here because, I'm on the council that approved the language. So I feel a little weird about it, but I just wanted to talk about it with everyone. Because I didn't know if anyone else would want to, but.
I think they're excellent points, Andrew. My interpretation, I think Carol's insight is extremely valuable. A lot of stuff can happen at a town meeting, but it doesn't really hold water if it's not in accordance with the home rule charter.
Yeah.
So I think the better way to go about that would be to identify those items that we would like to address and do so with the Charter Review Commission, which would perhaps be a more solid way moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So this wouldn't be addressed till next year? For a year, it wouldn't be addressed
will.
because we haven't
Well,
met with the charter.
Two years, really. Because we would vote on it as a town next November. Well, so a year and a half. So if we went to the Charter Review Commission and made suggestions to them for edits,
Yeah.
they would then submit their recommendations to the town council, and the town council would decide which what we would want to move forward to the ballot. So the council is not held to, we don't have to listen to every recommendation that comes from the Charter Review Committee. They could come to the council and say, well, we've got these 100 changes that we want to make to the charter, and we could say, well, we don't want to do any of them, or we could do all of them. So it's a long process, a few hoops to jump through, but the end goal would be to have it on the ballot in November of 2022 to make those changes permanent. But as Carol notes, the first step is going to the Charter Review Commission and even just getting it on their radar, because they might not even know that we think this is an issue, or they might not even know that this is a problem or it's something that's holding us up. So
Yeah, they clearly do not know.
yeah.
But even under present circumstances, Claudia, if we were to think of the funds that we have available, and the process being that of first going to the town council to get their approval, and in gaining that approval, we could then hold a special town-wide meeting regarding a singular piece of property. A quorum would be how many, Carol?
It's roughly around 156.
Okay, so if we had a special town meeting, whether to approve funding for a particular piece of property, we would have to establish a quorum of 156 people. And I would say that the majority of those 156 people would be in favor of whatever it is we were looking to do. So I think as it stands, the process could work. And it certainly could be amended to be improved, but as it stands, I think the process could work. And I think there needs to be transparency, as Susan had said. What we're talking about is public money, and it's for the public good. So I think that the more notification, the more information that people have, the better we all are.
So we all agree that the way the budget committee recommendation reads as is fine for the upcoming financial town meeting? Do we all agree on that?
Don't everybody speak up.
Yeah.
I think it's okay, given the constraints that we have, that we can't do anything about except through charter changes. I don't see how, I think there's good language in there that gives us a lot of authority, but, and then taking it to the council. So I think it's good that I think it informs the public that, these are activities that we might and should undertake, but we would do it through a public process with the town council. I think my only issue with it, and that's a charter issue, is just the timing, the difficulty of actually acquiring anything if you have to really go through all those steps.
Right. Okay, I didn't want to go past that language change that Andrew had suggested, or and just leave it the way it is, or actually suggest that we ask to change the language. So we all agree that we're just going to leave it that way and not say anything.
I don't know that we all have to agree that it's perfect or come to an agreement on any of it, but certainly you as a private citizen have the opportunity at the financial town meeting to raise the issue before that quorum of townspeople, and to raise and propose any changes that you may wish to make.
Andrew, am I allowed to email you to ask you what your changes would have been?
Oh yeah, just the two of us. The two of us can talk about it offline anytime.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Go
I
ahead.
guess that is any further discussion on any items here this evening? Any new business that we're at liberty to bring up? Okay, hearing none. Our last motion is that of adjournment, if we do have that motion.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Unanimous by consent. All right.
Thank you.